Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last video. I actually took a break from playing shmups for a couple of weeks due to a health condition that affected both of my hands, but thankfully I feel a lot better now and I have been playing Raiden IV Mikado Remix on PlayStation 4, as you can see. So this is a great game. I just did a 1-all of this today. I'm playing the original arcade mode in normal difficulty, which is actually a little easier than the initial arcade version, the one that was released in arcade, but for some reason it was chosen as the default difficulty for the leaderboards for this. So I defaulted to this version for now. As for what I think about the game, so I haven't played the other Raiden games. This is the first one I've tried in the entire series. I think it's a great shmup. I'm very impressed by the visuals, the music's amazing. Even the newly added Mikado remix soundtrack, I think, is actually pretty good. It grew on me. Initially I didn't like it that much, but I think it's pretty good. I think this is the one I'm using right now, so you can hear it, hopefully. I do like many things about the games. The enemy designs, so the graphics, the sort of 2D and 3D mix, I think is what it is. I think the 3D models, even though they're a bit old now, I think they look great. So overall, I really like this game. In terms of gameplay, so I've always heard this was a mix between classic and bullet hell, but to be honest, to me it feels more like a classic shmup than it does a Danmaku. The bullets are really fast, they're usually aimed at you, so you have to keep moving at all times. Your ship is really slow, and there are a lot of sections that you need to memorize before you can clear the game. So to me it feels like it feels close to maybe a Tower Plan game or maybe a Psycho game. It doesn't feel anything like a cave bullet hell, for instance, even though at some points there are a lot of bullets on screen. It's just the gameplay feels completely different. But it is a nice feeling. It's not my preference, but it is nice because there's almost no RNG, so once you know the game it feels pretty comfortable to play over and over again. It's also a lot more difficult than it looks because it's a very streaky game where taking a death or picking the wrong power-up can really kill your run, pretty much. So I should say a few things about the weapon system. In this game, so you have to pick up power-ups to either switch weapons or increase your firepower. So there are 3 different main weapon types. The first one, the one I'm using right now, is the red power-up. So that's the wide shot, the spread shot. That one is usually the best for the stages, for instance. Then you have the blue power-up, which is the laser. That one is the one that does the most damage. It's the one I'm using on bosses to end them more quickly. And then the pink power-up, I think, it's pretty bad. Overall, that one you really don't want to pick. It's the sort of to-space laser that looks pretty cool, but it's actually really weak in terms of DPS or damage. And then there's a sub-weapon system where you can also pick either missiles or a homing shot, or a third one that I actually don't remember at the moment because I don't use it much at all. So for the stages I usually use the large missile spread, as you can see, with the homing shot, because that covers a lot of space and it makes it easier to navigate the stages. I think it's the default choice that is used by most players. What else can I say about this game? See, you can see a lot of there are a lot of bullets, and you pretty much have to know where all the enemies are coming. See, right here, I actually picked the wrong power-up. I wanted the blue one, but I got the pink one. So at this point, I'm actually pretty upset that this might end the whole run, because it just does so little damage that you have to you have to face patterns that you normally wouldn't have to with the blue power-up. So here I'm thinking, you know, I don't want to reset because I might still make it, but it's really, I really dislike this weapon. When I started playing the game, I thought it looked really cool, but I quickly realized I was just sort of nerfing myself by using this. So this second boss is pretty cool. It has 3 different forms, and I do really like the enemy design, how they transform and have different parts that come up. So this section can actually get a bit confusing because the bullets get fast at this point, but nothing pretty bad if you stick to the middle and then quickly tap dodge to the side. You should be fine. And now we're moving on to stage 3. I actually made it with the pink shot, which is surprising. And now we're moving on to stage 3. At this point I have 5 bombs, which is pretty good. My aim is to switch to the red power-up, but see, the annoying thing is you sort of have to wait until it cycles through to the one that you want, and it does stop switching when you stop shooting, but not shooting in this game is really dangerous. So yeah, it's one of the things I'm not a fan of, is having to pick the right power-up. I feel like that's actually probably the most difficult thing in the game. Managing your power-up or recovering upon death, for instance, is actually more difficult than dodging most of the patterns or, you know, just getting past all the stages. And it's a really interesting game because when you're looking at it, it looks pretty easy. And I'm not saying it's super hard. I think on normal difficulty, it's actually very, very manageable and fine. But you still, there's this strange rhythm to the game where you always have to be moving. See, sort of moving left to right. Feels like I felt the same playing Flying Shark, for instance. You can't really stay in one place because something's just gonna come out and snipe you, and the enemies can go really low to the screen and they'll still, I don't think you can seal them, so you can get into some pretty tough situation if you're not careful. This is not a game you can just freestyle and clear, unfortunately. So in terms of scoring mechanics, this game has a lot. So you have to kill enemies as fast as possible. You also have to pick up those yellow orbs that I'll come back to, so you can see them on screen here, along with the bullets, which that section is particularly chaotic. You also get points when grazing bullets or enemies, and it does that sort of stressful sound that really stresses me out, and I usually don't do it on purpose. I'm just, for this run for instance, I'm just trying to clear and not really score. For the most part, if you go make it far into the game, you will get a decent score, which is nice. And there's also, so when you don't shoot for I don't know how long, might be half a second for instance, then your sub-weapon gets charged, and when you release the sub-weapon, you get more points when you kill enemies with it. Now I praised this game a lot, but there are also a few things I don't really like about it. For instance, I think it has some visibility issues. For instance, in that section that we saw earlier with the power-ups that are yellow, your own shots are also yellow oranges, and the enemy shots are also pretty much the same color. See here, for instance, it's kind of hard to see what's an enemy shot and what's the actual score item. So I think they could have done better on that, you know, just switching the shots to a different color. That would have make it easier, because sometimes even just the backgrounds or the explosion make it really hard to see some of the bullets, and if you don't know they're coming, then you're pretty much going to die. It's just a given in a game where the bullets get this fast. And I know when I first started playing the game, I did die several times without knowing what hit me. So, you know, that doesn't feel great. This boss, the stage 3 boss, is also one of the coolest in the game. It's really long. It has 3 different phases. And again, when you know what you're dealing with, it's not too bad. You know, it's more about positioning, making sure you don't get put in a difficult situation, but once you know the patterns, this one's actually pretty manageable. So that was the first phase. Phase 2, you know, see again a lot of tap dodging, stay in the center, move to the side. It's pretty straightforward. Phase 3 is a little more challenging. This is actually phase 2, sorry, it has 4 phases. And yeah, those shots get me a lot because they're pretty quick and you have to remember to tap dodge. So at this point I think it's 7 bombs. That's the maximum that the game will let you keep in stock. And this is the final phase of the boss, which can get a little challenging. You know, you have to dodge some difficult stuff. At this point I just don't like dealing with this specific pattern, especially when I have so many bombs. And this is when it gets a little stressful because the run is going great, I have so many bombs. I don't want to lose here. That would ruin the run. And as you can see, I kept shooting because there was a small enemy that came up on the top left of the screen, and they can kill you. Even after you killed the boss, they can actually shoot you and kill you. That happened to me one time and I was I was just in disbelief. So now we're already moving on to stage 4. This is where the game gets a little more challenging, but it's actually not too bad, you know. Just have to make sure you don't go off to the side too much. Stay in the middle to have as much space as possible to tap dodge. So here I'm just what I want. This is the hardest part of the stage for me because I just want the red power up. And then once I'm there, you can sit back to the bottom of the screen, just keep shooting and focus on dodging incoming enemies. And yeah, another thing I'm not a huge fan of in this game is that it feels very static. So you won't see all that much variation in ship types or weapons or even tactics between players, because it feels like there's very much a right way and a wrong way to play the game. There's just not that much leeway. Some weapons are just that much better for specific situations that it doesn't really feel worth it to try the other ones, to be honest. That's a little unfortunate because it would have been a little bit more fun, you know, to see what people come up with, how they use their own tools. This doesn't feel like I would describe as a sandbox shmup. Like some games that just give you a bunch of tools and you have to figure out how to use your resources. This is very much the opposite of that. So this section is interesting because you don't want to destroy the first 2 statues on the left, so you only want to destroy all the ones that have that red crystal on their heads, because when you do that you get an extend at the end of this section. It's actually pretty easy to do, but again you have to know it, because otherwise you're probably just going to destroy all the statues and not get the extend. By the way, there are no score extends in this game, so this is pretty much the only way to get an extend as far as I know. So this section, when you're fully powered up, it's actually pretty easy. See, here's the 1-up. Now we're going down. At this point, this is actually pretty close to a perfect run. And again, it's not that hard, but this strange rhythm that the game has, the fact that it's so static and that, you know, you get the same result during every run, so you can sort of like fall asleep and not not be as cautious as you should be. And the bullet speed is still pretty quick. So, you know, for instance, this section you can very easily die here. And I think at this point I was getting a little, yeah, that was a close call. Getting a little nervous because I have so many bombs that at this point it's just not worth trying to dodge too much, you know. I just want to use those bombs. And I think I want to use them on the stage 4 boss, which I haven't practiced much, so I'm not very good at it. So at this point I'm just hoping I can hold out until the end of the stage to just dump a lot of bombs on that specific boss, which is a pretty basic strategy. But hey, I think it is how the game wants you to do. And see, here I did use that bomb because things were getting a little dicey with the overlapping cross shots. So here, getting the laser again for this boss, point blanking to get as much damage as possible. But yeah, this boss can be tricky because both forms can shoot you. And here at this point I have a lot of bombs, so I'm just sort of bomb spamming to try and kill them as much as possible. They have 2 phases. I usually target the one on the back because that gives me more time to react to their shots. But see, this section, for instance, they have those small shots that you almost can't see, which are really, really dangerous. So I think at this point my goal was just to try and make it to the final stage, you know, with this current life, and I managed to do that with a bomb to go on top of it. So I was actually feeling pretty confident that I would be able to clear, but I had a few times where I did really well like this, and then what happened was I died, and you don't get much invincibility upon death. So if you want to pick back up your weapon, it can get really dicey. Sometimes you have to use a couple of bombs because you get the wrong power up and you have to wait. And so really you can go from a really great run to really to just losing everything in the span of just a few seconds, which is, I mean, it keeps things exciting, but it can also be extremely frustrating. Picking the wrong power up is just, it feels really bad. So I'm not a huge fan of that kind of system in games. I think it's better when they give you a choice, or, you know, make it so that different ships have different shot types. But yeah, it is what it is. So this stage 5 is the final stage of the game, at least in this version, which is the original arcade version. It's actually a bit challenging. You still, you know, you have to stay awake. It is static, so you know what to do, but you have to tap dodge a lot, and there are a couple of tricky parts. In terms of risk reward, the game is pretty basic. It's what you get is pretty much, do you want to spend a bomb or do you want to keep it for later? Which, you know, feels like classic games have this feel. It's fine, but I would have liked it to feel a bit more engaging in that regard. Saying that, I did enjoy the game a lot, and I might try to go for an original clear in original arcade difficulty. That I know that gets really confusing. It's the way they set up the names for the difficulties and the modes is really confusing to everyone. I already did the light version of the original arcade difficulty game, so I might go for just the original game. It's more difficult than this, but not all that more difficult. I know I already made it to stage 5, so maybe I'll push through. We'll see. I do want to try some other games though. There are so many great shmups that I haven't played yet. This is a safe spot, so as long as you're fully powered up with that weapon, you can just stay there, right in the middle, just keep shooting and nothing will kill you. Which is, it's kind of neat, but again, it's some design, like in the Psycho games, I'm not a fan of that because it just makes it really trivial. When you know this, it's a matter of, do you have the resources to get through, and then there's just no gameplay, you're just waiting. So it feels like dead time, like, you know, dead air pretty much. I do like this section. This one gets a bit crazy with this. I had to practice dodging these sections a bit. Here I'd rather use a bomb because the patterns overlap and the gaps can get really small. And also in this game you don't have a focus shot, so you can't slow your ship down. It is slow by default, but it's just, you know, there's just a single speed pretty much. And at this point what I'm thinking is I have 3 lives left. 3 lives left, maybe 4 if you count the final one. I don't have any bombs, so I just want to make it through to the final boss, which is pretty close at this point. I had to make some really close dodges here. Here you have to pick up the laser weapon and it has to be powered up. I feel like this is a really cruel section because if you don't have the right weapons, the rocks, the asteroids will just kill you and you run right there. So here I'm feeling super good because I have no bombs, which is ironically pretty good, because that means I can dodge as freely as I can without having to think about whether I want to use bombs here or not. At this point I have no choice, so all I can do is dodging. And this section is again pretty cool. It looks crazy, but it's not as hard as it looks. You have to be careful of the small asteroids that are flying towards you because those can kill you if you're not careful, and they're a different color. And you have to kill all of the armored parts that are protecting the crystal. And here I'm doing pretty well. You know, if I can take this life to the second form, this is the final form, and I managed to do that. And here I can just, you know, I have many lives in stock, so I felt pretty comfortable. Unfortunately, I lose it, and I'm just sort of panicking and using bombs. I picked the wrong power up, unfortunately lose another life, so that was a big waste. And here I'm just bomb spamming to ensure I get the clear, because this was my first clear. So it could have gone a lot better, but in the end it was not too bad, because I still have 1 life left, 1 bomb. I'm moving into loop 2, which I've never seen before, and you will see how crazy the bullet speed gets on loop 2. I was not ready for it. So this is stage 2-1, and yeah, unfortunately on the right you can see that the replay kind of spoils what happened in the end. But yeah, I did make it through this first stage. But right away you can see, so here I'm in big trouble because the bullets are pretty quick and I don't have the right weapon. So I do want to go up there and grab the red shot, but I can't. And here again, see, it feel out better. You can just hang back and use the spread shot and homing shot to destroy everything. So my final thoughts about this game, I've played also the other remixed modes that are the overkill mode and the additional mode, which is just arcade with a couple of additional stages. They're pretty cool. And you know, there is some variation on where the enemy spawns and the content, so there's a lot in there. If you've never played this game, I think this release is really good. Just be aware that, at least to me, it feels more classic than modern. So you do have to memorize, you do have to sort of grind the game out. But once you know how to play it, you're all set. So loop 2, obviously, as in all games, is much more difficult than loop 1. So here I'm just sort of holding out, trying to see how far I can get, which is probably not very far at all. And wow, see, if you're in the wrong spot, you'll just get sniped in this game. So thankfully this first boss is pretty easy if you know how to deal with it. But I remember there being the final pattern that I just didn't want to deal with. I think this, yeah, here, I'm just bombing because it is so quick that even though it's just a simple tap dodge that you have to do, I did not feel comfortable doing that. I do love the music in this game. I think that is, if there was one thing I had to choose as the main standout, it would be the music. I think the music is fantastic. It's up there with the greats. At this point I picked the wrong power-up again. I did not want the laser for the stage, and I'm feeling very nervous because the bullets are super quick. And the thing for this section, you really don't want any small ship to make it to the bottom of the screen because they'll just snipe you horizontally, and then you have almost no space to escape. Wow, this, even just watching the game, this feels pretty quick. But at this point I was still doing okay. Anyway, that's about all I had to say on this game. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think of the game, what you thought of the run. Let me know if you have any comments, like, subscribe. If you're interested in this type of content, commentated runs. I do try my best to not only comment the gameplay, but I also want to share my thoughts on the game. So it's sort of like half review, half gameplay commentary. And I do know my gameplay is not, compared to some players, not super impressive, but you know, I started to think, I've started playing these games for about a year and I'm actually pretty okay now. Here I take that death. And that was clearly avoidable. And now I'm sort of, you know, just panicking and spamming bombs because I do want to get the red power up for that next sections that has a lot of smaller enemies. And that was probably a mistake because now I'm left with just one bomb before the boss and it will get really difficult. So I'll let you enjoy this final boss fight for me, which is stage 2 boss, and it has a different color in the second loop. It's actually blue, and it was sort of red orangish on the first one, which is pretty cool. The patterns are the same though, they're just much quicker, and I think this second phase is where I ended up losing. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Keep playing shmups. If you're playing shmups, they're the best type of game. And see you next time. Bye.